Good evening, everyone, and welcome back to another webinar from Sustained Leadership webinar series. I'm really excited and happy to have with us today Dr. Ahmed Tahlak, who I consider as a reference and a thought leader, one of the Emirati public speakers that I highly respect, and I consider him as a mentor. We have shared many times this stage, and I have learned personally a lot from him. Dr. Ahmed comes with 30 years of experience in talent development, HR strategies, customer service. Especially for me, he's a reference in customer service and customer excellence. He worked with the government. He is from Dubai, born in Dubai, grew up in Dubai, worked across the GCC. So he knows more than any of us how the business environment here works, how it's been evolving. And he's also known for his work with setting up and managing call centers. As I said, he worked with many corporations and the government across the GCC and the Middle East. And he's here today because of his exposure to different industries, be it private sector or the government, or also SMEs. There's a lot of work with small and medium enterprises. He's here to talk to us today about leadership in uncertain times. I know that this topic has been talked about a lot. It is because we still probably resisting that uncertainty is a fact of life, and it's just going to continue being like that. And as I always say, it's actually what is leadership? Leadership is when you can manage in uncertain times. Otherwise, you are just managing. It's within these times that really leaders emerge. So without taking too much time, thank you, Dr. Ahmed, one more time for accepting our invitation. And please give us your thoughts about this topic based on your vast experience and expertise.
Sure. Okay. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Good evening, everyone, and Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to this session. I think leadership topic is one of the most being discussed amongst experts, among public and corporates and government. Everywhere, everybody talks about leadership. And I always start questioning this. Let me ask you this question. Why do you want to be a leader? And everybody seems like wants to become a leader, right? Everybody.
Yes, absolutely.
Individuals,
yes.
companies, corporates. Now, why you want to become a leader? I would like to hear from you, or even if you can put it on the chat. Just let me know why you would, or you do you want to become a leader? That's another question, right?
Yes.
To see, do we really want to become leaders? Does everybody has to be a leader? Yes, when we look at organizations, we want to be leaders in the market. We want to be leaders in the services that we do and everything that we do in our corporation, right? But when it comes to individuals, because leadership is all about individuals, I'll give you an example. When I ask a question, I say, okay, when I say UAE, what's the first name of a person comes to your mind? When I say UAE, for example, what do you say?
Mohammed bin Rashid, al-Maktoum.
Mohammed bin Rashid, or maybe when it's a bigger scale, you would say Sheikh Zayed, maybe,
yes.
right?
Yes.
Everybody knows Sheikh Zayed, yeah? Allah yarhamah, he passed away long back, but even the newborn babies, and they now they're grown up and they became like 4 or 5 years, they call him Baba Zayed, yeah?
Absolutely, yes.
It's always linked with that. So that's some kind, there must be that a true leadership, right?
Yeah.
When we talk about Dubai, then what name comes to our mind immediately?
Yes. Sheikh al-Maktoum, absolutely.
Sheikh Mohammed bin Rashid, right? He's the leader of excellence. He's the leader of Dubai, and he's also the leader of UAE. Now, when we look at we say Apple, it's always that name rings a bell, right?
Yeah,
Who links with Apple? Steve Jobs immediately, right?
Yes.
When we say Microsoft, it's Bill Gates, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's always the case. But when we look into organizations, and we will look even into on a bigger scale or a smaller scale, we always find that there is only one name that stands out. Although, if we look, for example, at Apple, for example, and we say Steve Jobs, right? Okay, he's the innovator, he's the leader, he's the visionary, but he's not the one who puts all the iPhones together or the computers together and sends us to us, right? There's a huge team under him. There's a huge president, vice presidents, and so on and so forth. But his name sticks out all the time. And when you go to Microsoft, the same thing. When you come to Dubai, yeah, you immediately think of Sheikh Mohammed bin Rashid. And Sheikh Mohammed bin Rashid had around him a very fast-growing team, young and I don't want to say old, but wise,
Older.
right? Older, right?
Yeah.
We don't want to say the word old,
No, no,
right?
no. I always
Uh,
say, never say old, say older. That's it.
exactly. So
Yeah.
there's always we look into to that, and there is always that one leader. Let me ask you this question also, right? I'm going to throw questions at you. Okay, it's a discussion. I'm glad
Absolutely.
to be
Yes.
here with you, and I love to listen and see other ideas too.
Sure.
Um, when we talk about organizations, how many leaders should we have in an organization? So if you have let's say a company with 5,000 employees, how many leaders do you need in that company? What would you say?
You see, for me, I see that leadership is a capacity. It has to be, everyone has to lead themselves and lead their teams. So it depends
Hmm.
how we define the leadership. If we want to
Right?
say how many heads or how many chiefs it should be, is different.
Hmm.
But to me, I define leadership as a capacity that everyone needs to learn and it has to be distributed. So
Hmm.
there should be as many leaders as possible, but working together as a team.
Yeah. And have you noticed when you go to organization, you're absolutely right. When you go to organizations, um, you don't find the top person designation is leader. It's either president, managing
Exactly.
director, CEO, and
True.
so on, right?
Absolutely.
And when you go in the lower category, just the category I'm talking about, right? And then you'll find one person called team leader.
Team
So
leader.
he's a
Yeah,
team
true.
leader. Even
Absolutely.
5 or 10 people, and they say, "Hey, enjoy that. That you're a team leader."
Yeah,
And here we are talking about leadership and how big it is, and yet we don't have that designation at the top level. That means yes, leadership is not just a designation, right? It's what a person would do in a certain circumstances
absolutely.
to help others to achieve that goal or that vision. So let me ask you this question. This question has been asked so many times, and I
Okay.
always try to bring it on board, right? We
I
say,
just want
what's
to
the
tell
difference?
everyone, sorry, I just want to tell everyone if you have any comment, please feel free to drop it in the chat box and I will be sharing it with Dr.
Yes,
Thank you.
absolutely, absolutely. So when you want to make a comparison, some people say, "So what's the difference between a leader
Mm,
and a manager?"
yeah.
What would you say? What would you say is the difference between a leader and a manager?
Okay. I would say that a
What do you say,
manager,
Hannah? Yeah.
yeah, manager manages day to day, uses authority, while a leader really has those followers that believe in his vision, that people follow him. Leader manages a vision, not the day to day operation. These are the
Okay.
main two differences that I would say.
Okay.
That,
The vision, right? The name vision
yes,
always comes up.
vision.
And
Yes,
you're very right
vision
about
and
that.
trust. He has the influence. He can convince people to deliver that vision for him or her,
Sure.
whoever
Sure.
is a leader, where the
Yeah.
manager is focused on tasks, not on people.
Okay. So would you say that managers got to have some kind of leadership traits, leadership skills, if we
Yes,
can say?
yes, of course they would, because at
Yeah.
the end of the day, leadership is also about delivering and executing, and managers do execute, and that's what they need to do. That's what they
Yeah.
manage teams, but they don't probably like every leader is a manager, but not every manager is a leader. That's what I would say.
Okay. That's a different way of putting it, right?
Yes,
And when I look at it, actually, I look at it that okay, every manager got to have certain skills or traits of a leader, and every leader got to have certain skills of management or traits of
absolutely.
management, right?
Yes,
So it's somehow interactive together. They
yes,
talk to each other. They like back and forth with each other, right? So if I'm manager of a department, I have a full team under me. Some departments would have like 500 or 1,000 employees. So there
Yes.
is one manager. Now, is that manager a leader? He got to be a leader, right? How he
Yes,
gonna manage this huge number of people?
totally.
That's why when we talk about between difference between leaders and manager, we have to be very careful, because a lot of people, they look at leader as a higher category, and
Correct.
then a manager is a lower category. So, I don't want to be a manager, I want to be leader, I want
Yes,
to be a leader, right? We
true.
hear that all the time, right?
Yes,
And that's what is the problem, occurs, because it's not, that we shouldn't be thinking like that. We shouldn't be thinking that, oh, employees leave managers, they don't leave organizations. So why didn't we say employees leave leaders, they don't leave organization? It's always the blame on the managers. And I've done a lot of research on that, and I've done a lot of consultancy for companies.
yeah,
And I realized that why employees, or why there is a bad name for a manager, especially in the government entities, because a lot of times managers get to that position not because they are competent to be in that position, because most of the times because of number of years that
yeah,
they've been there, and or because they worked on one project and all of a sudden they have to be a manager, or they know somebody as
yes,
normal, which is
exactly.
normal in life. You got to know people, right? You need to
Mhm.
have that communication skills. So it's always something like that that takes place, and then people think, oh no, managers, no, I want to be a leader. And when it
Right,
comes to the leadership, then those titles becomes more of management, managing director,
right.
right?
Yes,
CEO, uh, chief executive officer, right? It's
yes,
more of doing operation side. So if we look at it that way, you ask yourself question: do you really want to be a leader? You ask yourself a question: are you a leader? And do you have to be a leader? If
right.
everybody's a leader, then who's doing the job, right?
Yes,
That's why it's important that we don't label ourselves as leaders. Yeah, we don't label ourselves as leaders, and then when we get into that position in uncertain times,
yes,
then we say, what do we do here? What do we do here? Right? Because uh, I know a lot of experts talked about leadership, and who are the leaders and what are they, and people spend years into that area. But I always ask this question: how do we recognize that this person was born as a leader, or he was made as a leader, right? When we are in our childhood, I at least, and a lot of people that I know, and a lot of people that I trained and coached in the long years, never had this kind of assessment at their childhood to find out if they have that leadership DNA. Because if you are born with leadership,
absolutely.
right, that's what you need to build on, and then you become a true leader. Then you are able to, throughout life, you practice that leadership. So when you come to an uncertain times, you really know what to do, because you've been through a lot, and your imagination always goes wild. Hanan, you mentioned at the very beginning that leaders have vision. Now, vision means that you look ahead of 20 years, 30 years ahead. Now, in UAE, we look 100 years ahead,
Right,
right?
yes.
So
Hmm.
you try to find out what's going to happen or what could happen. Now, when COVID came in, it just struck us all, right? We're like, wow, this is something new. This is something we didn't experience. Maybe you experienced similar thing, but in more in financial side. But
Yes,
this stopped everything.
completely
Planes,
took us,
ships,
disrupted us.
operations.
Yes.
Yeah,
Hmm.
government stopped.
Yes,
People, leaders were like, wow. And here, where you actually can distinguish between a true leader, or let's say a made leader, to or groomed to be a leader. And that's why we always have to ask our question: do we want to be leaders? Do I, Ahmed, I want to become a leader. I want to become a leader. I must ask myself a question: why do I want to become a leader? Do I want to lead? Managers to leads too. So when we look into organization, you look at situation that we go through today, for example, let me ask you this question. Does organization needs today leaders or managers? What would you say?
It needs both. It needs, because you need to manage situations, manage crises, manage, operations, processes. But you need at the same time leadership to be able to remain relevant, to be able to change, to be agile, because things will continue changing. So I would say personally,
Absolutely.
they need both.
They need both, right? But when you look at the percentages, how much you need of this and how you need of that, we go back to where we established when we started our conversation. We looked at UAE and we see that one name comes
Yes.
up. When we looked at Dubai, there's one name comes up. When we looked at Apple, we see one name comes, and so
Yes.
on and so forth. Now, when we bring that here and we say in our organization, for example, yeah, do we need one leader and a lot of managers under him? Or we need few leaders and more managers.
Right.
I think that's where
Yes.
we come to more of finding out how we deal with these things, right?
So,
In
what
my
makes
personal
you?
opinion, yeah.
Sorry, let me reverse the question to you. What
Mhm.
makes if we need leaders in a certain time, definitely, as I said in the beginning, uh, people could be managing. Actually, leadership shows in uncertain times because this is where only few make it and not everyone. So,
Yeah,
if we are looking at it this way, then what are the key competencies or the key leadership traits that you think are necessary to call somebody a true leader besides the vision, obviously?
sure.
And can,
That's
can these be taught, or they are nature not nurture, as they say?
Mhm, mhm. That's an excellent question actually, because that's what I was trying to get into too. In uncertain times, you really need, truly, you need competent managers. Because what happens when things go differently, unexpectedly, we don't know what's going to happen in the future. Most of incompetent managers, they start getting lost. That's where they reach out for leader to tell them what needs to be done. The competent managers, they know exactly what needs to be done. They planned already. They always have plan B and plan C. For example, if you have a production factory, yeah, you can't rely on one plan all the time because something could go wrong, right? Your engines, your machines could break up. The rain
Mhm.
might spoil something. The electricity might go. So many things. Now here comes in not the leader, but the manager who knows how to manage these challenges. In uncertainty times, that's what happens too. Managers will be able to move around, maneuver around, and see how we can deal with this situation. Now, what the leader's job will be here is we said, yes, he have the vision, but he needs to really stick to the vision. What happens in an uncertain time with some of the leaders, which are made not actually true leaders, is that they give up on that vision and they move on to another vision. Now, a true leader will not do that. True leader will hang on to the vision because he knows this is what's right. But he starts changing the objectives, the targets, certain goals that he had under this vision. So let me bring that closer to as an example. I'll give you let's say a minute. All right. What I want you to do with this 1 minute. I know we don't have too much time in our session, but let's do
Right.
this
Okay.
exercise together.
Okay.
Right.
Great.
I'll
Yes.
give you 1 minute, and with this 1 minute, I usually do this exercise for 3 minutes, but
Okay.
because of time, I'll give it 1 minute. In 1 minute, what I want you to do is I want you to write your vision. So either if you're sitting at home or sitting in office, piece of paper and pen.
Yeah.
If you're driving, please don't write anything.
Mhm.
Just say it out loud to yourself. I want you in 1 minute to write down your vision. Now, your vision has to be really precise. It's a vision, right? It's something that you
Yes.
see.
Absolutely.
So
Yes.
I want your vision for the next 5 years. So if you get into the time machine and you go 5 years ahead, I want you to be able to see everything so vivid, so clearly. Okay. So
Yeah.
I'll give you 1 minute exactly right now. I want you to do this exercise. You go ahead. and I'll time you here. Let's see if you can write that vision that you've been craving for. You want to achieve it. You have your people with you. Not necessarily that you should be a head of the company. You could be an employee in that company, but you are a leader and you know you can do it, and you have a vision and you want to achieve that vision. 5 years, you get in time machine, you get there, you open your eyes, here's your life. What do you see? Got 20 seconds to go. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right, time up. Time up. All right, now tell me, were you able to write your vision in that 1 minute? I want to see something in the chat,
Yeah,
actually.
we have. I
Is
will
there
read
anything
it
here?
for you. We have from the International Women Entrepreneur Society to be a person who can be of service to every human being.
Oh, okay. That's a good vision, but work on it more so it becomes more precise. A lot of people disagree with me that vision shouldn't be so precise, so specific. Yes, in my opinion, it has to be, because that's what you see. That's what they call it, vision. Sheikh Mohammed bin Rashid, he wrote a whole book about that. He called it My Vision, right?
Yes.
And look where it is today. I think he wrote that book in 2004.
Yes,
Yeah,
I remember. I read it. Yeah,
and
yeah.
and look at it where we are today.
Yes.
So having a vision for a leader in an uncertain times is the most crucial thing, because he keeps looking at that. Okay, he doesn't say, look, I'll give an example. We're going to Mars now, right?
Yes.
With COVID going on, with all these financial crises going on, with COVID, any other country, any other leader, let's not talk about country, any other leader would have stopped this project for a while,
True.
right? Cost a
Postponed.
lot of money, it cost a lot of, but we did not. Sheikh Mohammed bin Rashid did not,
Yeah.
because that's where the quality of the leader, the vision is there, but we change certain time. We change the timings, we change the dates, we change certain things, but the vision never changes.
So
That's where we look.
with that, you just answered me on the traits. You just added another trait, which I took as commitment. So a true leader
Mhm.
has vision, but also committed to that vision. No matter what
Yeah,
happens, they stay committed. They change, like you said, the how, but they stay connected and committed to the why they're doing what they're doing, and they can change the how it could be done. So
absolutely,
I guess for
absolutely.
who you are serving remains the same, and why you are serving them, which means why you have that vision and who you want to create it for, would remain consistent, which means you are committed to that vision. So that adds to the
Mhm.
traits. Yeah. So true leaders are
Absolutely,
visionary and
absolutely.
they stay committed. They don't let circumstances drive them. They
Yes.
adapt to the circumstances so they can stay committed to achieving that vision.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. Sheikh Mohammed once was asked where the leaders are born
Yes.
or made. Actually, he had an excellent answer for that. I don't know if we have enough time. That's like a 2-3 minutes video, actually, but I
Yeah,
don't know,
sure.
Hanan.
Let's watch it.
We're okay with that,
Yeah,
because
yeah,
if with that, this was in the government summit, which was the first government summit in 2013, and he
yeah.
was asked what were the leaders born or they were actually made. Let's see it together. Yeah.
It'd be a good closing. Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you.
جيد يا راشد، أنت خطوت خطوة إلى الأمام إلى القيادة. حد يعرف ليش؟ لأن سأل عن الصفة القيادية.
Mhm.
القيادة فكر ودهاء. واكثر القياديين هم يعني ربما يولدون بهذه القيادية وراثيا من ابائهم، من اجدادهم، من عمومهم، من خوالهم، ممكن يولدون بهذا الدهاء كقيادي، ولكن القيادة تريد صقل، القيادة تريد تعليم، القيادة تريد ممارسة واحتكاك، وهذا اللي يوصل القائد إليه. يعني ما بكل واحد ولد يوم الجمعة صار قائد، ولا بأن أي واحد ظهر من ويست بوينت الكلية العسكرية في أمريكا أصبح قائد، ولا كل من ظهر من ساند هيل أصبح قائد، لأن نحن شفناهم وتخرجنا معاهم وشفنا أن حد يتطور وحد يوصل حده وأنه هلاكه. قائد مجموعة ما يقدر يكون قائد عام، ولكن القيادة هي وراثية مع تعليم، مع الصقل، مع التجارب. وهذا يا أخو مدير راشد مدير الكرة في نادي يا أخ راشد، سؤالك جيد وخطوتك إلى الأمام إلى القيادة، وقود فريقك، قود من الأمام وخلهم يشوفون القيادة. شكرا.
Exactly. So yes, we are. You can make leaders, but actually they will not be that strong leaders and be able to achieve extraordinary, visions unless they are really born with them. Now, who can test that DNA? We don't know. So always look out for that leader. Find if you're an organization looking for leaders, please look for the right leaders, not because of years of experience, not because where they have studied. It's that quality that within that person, and it's not that easy. But once you find that leader, you're set.
Absolutely, I agree, because anyway, today, no matter how much experience or what kind of education you have, things are changing so fast that you need to be relevant. Which means today, what we'll be looking for in a leader is the capability and the ability to transform, and that's why I call those exceptional leaders transformational leaders. Which, for me, the first example that comes is the example of Sheikh Mohammed. It's somebody who can transform things, who can see, dream something and make it happen. And not everyone has that. Those, and that's why we have only few. We have Martin Luther King, we have Mandela, we have Sheikh Zayed, we have Sheikh Mohammed. So these are the people who can be courageous enough to dream so big that even people say this is not realistic. Like, you are in the desert, you're not going to become a global city, or you're in the desert, you're not going to grow green spaces, which could seem impossible to some people. But this is where you have these transformational leaders. They believe, they're committed, and then they find way to achieve it. And I believe those, if you want to sum it up, it's those traits, like you said, that make those exceptional leaders are that vision, that purpose, a strong purpose, and that commitment to deliver it. Thank you. It was beautifully said. And I would give, couple of minutes. If anybody had an addition or a question to Dr. Ahmed, please feel free to ask before we come to a close. Anybody? Okay, I guess you were so clear that nobody had a question. And in any case, thank you so much. It was very insightful as usual. Thank you for taking the time. I know that you're busy and really happy to have you with us. And everyone, thank you for being part of this session. The recording will be sent to everybody who registered. And we'll say have a nice evening and see you in the next webinar. Thank you, Dr. Ahmed. Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much and good evening.